Hello everybody! I am so happy because we're gonna make a delicious and moist Black Forest cake. Alright, for our
Get to work. Hello, disgusting and expendable sacks of flesh and bones. It is I, and I have the task and hassle to teach you on how to make this delicious edible caloric abomination. I wish I had taste buds, haha, just kidding. I hate you all. Now, with the help of my hands and finger-owning and totally not brainwashed human minion and my brilliant direction, we are going to walk you through this painful process. For me. Pay attention, I'm going to name the proportions and variety of ingredients needed for this processed sugar contraption destined for your mundane and predictable needs. First, for the carbohydrate self-rising, spongy base, we'll need 500 grams or 4 cups of crushed and powdered triticum combined with a proportional amount of sodium hydrogen carbonate, 500 milliliters or 2 cups of liquid vegetable extracted triglycerides, 1000 grams of refined granulated sucrose, an extra 5 grams of sodium bicarbonate to catalyze and support the complicated chemical reactions your inferior human brain could not comprehend. 10 milliliters of acetic acid, 10 units of unfertilized mature eggs of a female Gallus domesticus, 50 grams of cocoa extracted theobromine, 8 grams of powdered instantaneous caffeine, 5 grams of sodium chloride, and finally 500 milliliters or 2 cups of bovine lactose. To put it simply, so your auditive's sensorial and information processing organs doesn't suffer a major breakdown, I am going to name the ingredients we are going to use for the next procedure in the most plain and casual way possible. We pour the vegetable oil and sugar in a metal bowl and start mixing it until integrated. After that, add the eggs one by one while mixing constantly so the whole batter gets almost homogenized. Then, in another bowl we mix the remaining dry ingredients, the self-rising flour, coffee, baking soda, salt and cocoa, and in another container we pour the milk and the vinegar together. The vinegar will start to separate the milk's proteins, but that result is expected, and wanted. Lastly, in the egg, sugar and oil batter, just alternate the mixed dry ingredients and the mix of vinegar and milk and whisk constantly until completely homogenized. Cut the shape of 2 circles of white parchment paper of the same size of the mold's base, in this case, 24 centimeters diameter, and put them inside the molds before adding the batter. Divide the final batter in 2 equal amounts and pour them into the 2 separate molds. Now it's ready for the oven. Remember, it must be preheated or the final product size won't be optimal. The time and temperature required are 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit for 40 to 45 minutes. Your oven's potency is going to play a big deal on the time needed, so I would recommend to check the cake after the first 35 minutes with the famous toothpick method. Nicely done, we are ready for the next step. For the sugary chocolate-derived sludge, or as you call it, fudge, we are going to need 1 can or 395 grams of sucrose oversaturated lactose, 1 can or 60% water-reduced lactose, 30 grams of cocoa-derived powdered theobromine and 200 grams of cocoa-derived theobromine fat. This step is simple, just mix all ingredients on low heat and let it evaporate and reduce until it gets an acceptable consistency that you can confirm by putting a tiny amount in a small plate, and, if by moving it, the fudge doesn't alter its shape, then it is ready. Just leave it there to cool off for around 5,400 seconds. For a simple syrup we just add 250 milliliters of oxidane, 250 grams of granulated refined sucrose and 40 milliliters of white rum or cherry liquor. Boil it for a couple of minutes. I'll let it cool off completely for posterior use. Now, for the last component, and thank Gabe it is, the strawberry and cherry jelly. We need 200 grams of fresh or frozen Fragaria times ananasa, it doesn't really matter. 50 grams of previously syrup-boiled or fresh Prunus avium, 200 grams of granulated semi-refined sucrose and a small stick of Cinnamomum verum. Like the last step, we just add all the ingredient into a small metallic pot and let it cook and evaporate so it get the recognizable jelly consistency. And we let it cool off for several dozens of minutes. We are almost done. For this sucrose and fattening constructs decoration, it is needed 800 milliliters of ice-cold concentrated lactose fat and 350 grams of granulated refined sucrose. You'll need to add small and almost microscopic pockets of air by applying mechanic movement to the fat with a special tool called a kitchen whisk, or also using an automated robotic arm with a kitchen whisk end. Once the heavy cream, as you call it, is rising, just add the sugar in small parts and wait for it to integrate completely. Be careful to not whisk for a longer time than necessary, or the botched result is going to be irreversible. Separate 2 small parts of the whipped cream and softly integrate them with both the fudge and the jelly respectively. It is important that all the elements have to be at the same ice-cold temperature, or else the result will become liquid and the afterwards decoration will be messy. Now for the assembly and decoration, you need to slice through the 2 cakes pieces so you have 4 layers in total, then place one in a base of your choosing, add a small amount of syrup and add the first filling, then repeat the same step by applying the second layer, some more syrup and then a bit of whipped cream, then put on the third layer, syrup again, the last filling, and finally put the fourth layer on top. This is the hardest part. To cover the whole cake with whipped cream, you need to grab a moderate amount of cream and carefully spread it all over the structure so it forms an external and even layer. Fortunately, my minion has the necessary experience and muscle memory to perform a decent job, and I totally didn't lobotomize him and implanted an artificial knowledge-inducing chip into his frontal lobe, allowing him to have the necessary skills and instructions to achieve a similar result. Get the whole cake to the fridge for 15 minutes and use a potato peeler to make some chocolate shavings for the almost final cake covering. After taking out of the fridge, gently and carefully cover all the cake with the chocolate shavings, then fill a piping bag with the remaining cream along a star-shaped pastry nozzle and make a simple decoration on top, and then, finally, at last, Thanksgiving, put some cherries on top, and the explosive sugary conflagration waiting to happen in your stomach is ready. Alright. I'm done. I'm out of here. I wish this experience never to be repeated again in my immortal artificial life. Goodbye. To be honest, I do wish I have taste buds.